All right, welcome back, everybody. We have the fifth and final playoff team, Houston Cougars. So Houston, they started the season off 2-0, looked really good against Arizona State. Ran into some trouble in the middle of the season, playing really a gauntlet. They had Texas, Purdue, Illinois. So they lost at one point 4 out of 5, but they ended up winning their last 3, and they finished 6-4. So that's good for second in the league. They hold tiebreaker over Purdue, who they tied in record, which is could be important going into the playoffs because they'll be the home team for 2 out of 3 games against Purdue. This Houston team, they went 6-4, but 4-1 at home, 2-3 on the road. So definitely could make a difference there. I was looking at splits for Robbie. Robbie, he it looked like was a much better on the road. It looks like, yeah, I mean, at home rather. He was 4-0 at home. He had really good numbers versus most of the league. Purdue, he struggled, though. That was the game he gave up 10 runs. I don't remember if they were all earned, but 10 runs. They still won 13-10, but a little bit of a struggle there. But some would say it was due to lag or ping issues, running 200 ping. But we'll see. He's kind of expected to be the game one starter there. But Houston, really good offense. They did play some teams who didn't really have full fields. Arizona State a couple games, Illinois, Houston. But at the same time, you play who you play who shows up. You can't fault them for not playing full fields because it's really on the other team to field them. So finished first in runs scored. They were tied with Texas going into the last game. So that if you look at the video with Texas, it'll say Texas first at 60. But their 71 is now first. 40 runs against. That they're second, just behind Texas. So we'll get into their pitching. It's not, they don't have really that true ace that a lot of teams are missing, but that 1-2 punch is keeping them and a really good defense, keeping them at second. 10 home runs. They've only hit 10 home runs in 10 games. That's good for fifth. Only better than Kansas. So if you remember, there were 2 teams. I think Texas and Purdue each had over 20 home runs. So quite the disparity there. Half the number of home runs. But on the other hand, they lead the league in hits. They lead the league in the only team with triples. They lead the league in batting average. So there's a lot of good there for Houston. It was, plate appearances, runs, RBI, stolen bases, hits, doubles, triples. They lead the league in nearly every offensive stat. It's just home run is quite literally the only offensive stat they don't lead in. So they're they put the ball in play a lot. They get on base. Average distance. This is something I'll show you. Even average distance, they're second. So that I'd say that says something. If you're second average distance, sure you're not playing full fields, but you're still hitting the ball hard. It's still getting out of the field. A higher average distance than Texas, who leads the league in home runs. A higher average, I guess, not higher than Purdue, but higher than Arizona State, higher than Illinois. Both teams had more home runs, so they still can hit the ball hard. They've had trouble getting out, but part of that I think is their ballpark. 380 down the left field line does not get out at Boulder. A lot of 350, 360 balls off the wall we see there. 400 to center field not getting out. That's true at most ballparks, but they're in the ballpark. The ball hard is just not quite getting out. They went. Here's kind of the breakdown of their schedule: 2-0 against Arizona State, 0-2 against Texas. They split the series with Purdue, who they play in the first round or in the semifinals. Split the series with Illinois, and then 2-0 against Kansas just to end here. Kansas, they faced bets and they really had some offensive struggles. They won 1-0 against Kansas. And then this last game, Kansas, they hardly showed up. It was not even an elimination game. They were already eliminated. So kudos to them for even showing up. But But the Purdue game here, we saw this was Luis Augusto pitching against Bobbert. So they put only 2 runs up against Bobbert. They lost, and then they won 10-13 or 13-10 rather in the next game. I think Ralliant pitched that game. So we haven't. I don't know that we've seen. Let me see if they faced Vokid. I want to try to see here if they've had a chance to face Vokid yet. Because that's going to be the game 2 starter. If I go to Vokid, formerly teammates with XY, who they have. So he's at Purdue. So Bob 5 innings, 10 hits. So they got the hits. It's just again that long ball. Almost everybody in their starting lineup got a hit. Just one person, Famous, didn't get a hit. 5 strikeouts. Let's see. But against Lewis, I mean, Bobbert showed up. He went 1 for 2. Goon went 0 for 3. Ralliant 0 for 3. Matthew 1 for 3, but he struck out twice. So they don't have Matthew anymore. So yeah, I mean, Snedker is really the one who really showed out in that game with a late home run to keep it close, or I think that was the game winner actually. So Lewis, 5 innings. I guess 4 and 2/3. They gave up a walk-off to Snedker. Walk-off hit. Four strikeouts. Let's see, but then he has Honorable Matthew and Alex Toontown actually, who pitched the second game there. So let's see, Kansas I guess Kansas just played Purdue. No, they played early in the season. Sorry, first series. So Andrew, I think it's Purdue. Yeah, sorry, Andrew did not play Houston at all. He has not faced Houston because by the time he was on, when Purdue played Houston, Andrew was still on Kansas, and then when Kansas played Houston, Andrew was on Purdue. So they haven't even faced him. Could be good news for Andrew. First time facing him, he's getting better a little bit, but we'll see. It's a tough team here. Let's see, but kind of getting into the bulk of their lineup. So this is anybody who has, let's see the minimum games played on this one. I think 6. I usually go by 5 or more games played. In this case, it was 6. They don't have a ton of really good activity. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I mean 8 people. More than 6 games. Oh, I missed Super Doge Boy. We'll get into him, I suppose. They had 8 people play more than 6 games, at least 6 games. So, starting with the coaches, Luis Augusto, Yo Robbie, both very similar in a lot of the offensive stats. Both batting around 500. Not a lot of home runs here. Robbie has 2. Luis has none. 36 plate appearances, not a single home run for Luis, which is wild. His average distance. Let's see it. 233 average distance. So I mean, that's not terrible. It's a little bit. He's probably in the top 15 in the league in average distance. But the thing with average distance, if you're hitting at 250, 260 every time, you're going to get on base a lot, and you're not going to hit a lot of home runs. Whereas if somebody's hitting at 450 once and then 50 suds next, they're going to average 250, but every other hit's going to be a home run. So. A lot of contact there. Robbie and Lewis, the one thing they strike out a decent clip, nothing crazy. Lewis is 5, Robbie is 2. So Bobbert, he can be a high strikeout pitcher. He hasn't been so much this season. Vokid actually has more strikeouts than Bobbert does, but if they're going for strikeouts, it could be tough here, especially when you're not a power hitter. Instead of it being home run or strikeout, it's single, double, or strikeout. So I'm interested to see how they do there as contact pitchers against strikeout pitchers. Ian has just been phenomenal for them. He leads the league in batting average, on base percentage, even with just one home run, fourth in OPS. So he's hitting the ball very well, getting on base a lot. X-Wide, talked about him earlier. They traded for him. Really, really good trade for Houston because they gave up some pieces, but I think Wide is a piece they really needed in the outfield. You got Robbie in left field, you got Wide in right. Or sorry, I guess Robbie. I think Robbie plays center, Wide in right, and then if McBoy shows up, he'll be in left. It kind of just depends on who shows up because McBoy's activity kind of struggled a little bit. Let's see. Well, I guess looks like Robbie plays a lot of left. Lewis plays a lot of center. Wide's a lot of right. And then McBoy left. Ian can play outfield a little bit. So I think in a perfect world for them, they'd probably go McBoy in left, Lewis in center, Wide in right, and then Robbie on the mound. And I think I wonder if we'll get some center field innings out of Robbie. But we have not seen him play center all season. But it's not super different there. But Wide's a huge hitter there. He's played really. I mean, he's always a defensive player of the year candidate there. So McBoy, like I said, 22 plate appearances. He started off the season strong. 3 home runs in the first two games. But it was against Arizona State. So outside of Arizona State, it hasn't been great. I mean, 6 for 14, but no 6 for 14, but all singles. So outside of Arizona State, he's really not hit the ball super well. And first half of the season, batting .600 with 3 home runs. Second half, .444, all singles. So we'll see. We'll see if the offensive production really is going down for him, or if he can turn back into that player we were seeing earlier in the season. He's versus Purdue, he went 3 for 6. Versus Bobbert specifically 2 for 3. So it could be there for him, but we'll kind of see. I do want to touch on Super Doge Boy. I did not mention him in here. 10 for 26. He's got a home run, but he has not been kind of the Super Doge Boy we're used to. 7 strikeouts, not the end of the world if the power's there, but only one home run for a guy who's always been kind of a power hitter. He hits gaps a lot, and I think that may be hurting him at Boulder Ballpark. Let's see, in terms of his average, 283 on the average distance. He's second? He's second in the league in average distance. It's just his OPS plus his OPS. The ball's getting caught a lot, or it's at least staying in the park. His expected stats are certainly higher than his actual, so a little bit unlucky. Only 2 barrels, so it looks like he's hitting a lot of 330, 340. If I pull up his spray chart here. So let's, looking at his spray chart, he hits a lot of center field, a lot of left center field, a lot of left field line. He doesn't do it here. You can kind of see it here. He doesn't do a great job of aiming here, and I think that's what's hurting him. You see the 440 home run, 390. That was to left center. Down the line that's gone, but left center that's probably off the wall. Anything in like kind of this 290 to 350 range, depending on where you're aiming it. It's probably it's got a chance to get caught. Like 290 right at the left fielder. This is probably caught. That's probably caught. It kind of depends because I think people gap run him a lot, so that could be hurting him a little bit. So we'll see. With Purdue, that much like Houston, they have a really good defense. Outfield, possibly the 2 best outfields in the league. I would say so. I'd probably put them both up against Texas. Alex and Wide and right. Bobbert, if he's not on the mound, I guess Bobbert or Andrew in center, where you got like Robbie or Lewis, and then McBoy versus Snedger. I'd probably it's tough. I think I'd give the slight edge to Houston or to Purdue's outfield, but I think Houston's right there with them. So let's see. But anyway, moving on. Famous has he hit a home run in like the first game of the season and has just not done anything since. 2 for 19 on the season. How many strikeouts does he have? 6 strikeouts. I mean, he's hitting the ball really not. I mean, 190 average distance, so he's not hitting the ball super well. Astrojet also. I'm gonna pull up his spray chart because it's really bad. He's got an average distance of 42. So on average, he hits the ball. On average, it's going right to the pitcher. And this is what it's looking like. So he's 9 hit results. 8 of them are like to second base, under 60 stud or under 70 studs. He's got 1 hit, 260 to left field line. I don't know why he doesn't just try to hit left field line every time, but he keeps trying to hit that right center gap, and it's. I mean, genuinely, when we play against him, I just tell my team like, dude, just almost we need just everybody in the infield because, if it's not going over 260 studs pretty much. So that's kind of how you play Astrojet there. And by the way, everybody can see this. If you go into the spreadsheet, you just type the username back down here. You can look at versus pitcher. You can even see like who if a certain person fielded it, but this can be kind of the cooler one you can see. So you can kind of see like Lewis against Bobbert. He hit at 370, he hit at 210. It's versus pitcher. It's less about where they hit. It's more about how are they hitting against the guys? Are they hitting a lot of bloopers? Are they hitting them deep a lot? But if we look at certain guys like Bobbert hits a lot of right center. I know there's some people like they are. I think Phil. There's some people who have a lot of data. Like it'll be left field line they hit hard, and the right field line is kind of like 30, 40 studs less on average. So there's some really cool stats you can see there actually to see where people are hitting. This is just league average total, so you can see it's pretty split there. But yeah, now as for pitching, and again, it's kind of these pitchers, their ERAs kind of look, I think, worse than they really are. You gotta remember, it's a 10-game season. You have one blow-up game, and your ERA is jumps to 4 or 5. My ERA was sub 3 going into the last inning of my last start, and I gave up like 5 or 6 runs, and it ended up 4.65. So again, if we look at Robbie, he had one bad game. It was against Purdue, but he had one bad game there, and that kind of cooked his ERA. Let's see, he had between Illinois, Kansas, and Arizona State, so the bottom half of the league, he gave 2 runs in 10 innings, so it's an ERA of 2, versus Texas and Purdue, 14 runs in 9 innings. So he has struggled, even against Texas. It wasn't a great game, well, not a terrible game. If you got 4-4 against Texas, you got a chance to win, but it was a lot of the long ball there. 7 home runs given up in 9 innings. So, we'll see if he can keep the ball in the ballpark. Lewis actually pitched, as we saw, much better against Houston. 3 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. He struggled against Illinois, struggled against Texas, so also 2 of those playoff teams, and then Kansas and Arizona State were kind of the better matchups for him. So they'll be expected. I'm expecting Robbie's going to be on the mound, but we'll see. I mean, Lewis is the coach. To me, I don't buy in too much to the Robbie blow-up game against Houston. In the past, he's kind of been a playoff pitcher, elevates a little bit in the playoffs. I think he's got the lower average distance. I think he's a smarter pitcher than Lewis. And no offense to Lewis, Lewis is a fine pitcher, I think, but I think Robbie's been around for too long not to have him be the game one starter here. Just with the amount of experience he has, against BFBL with San Diego. He'd always elevated in the playoffs. Pitching pretty much since he came into next gen. I'd put him on the mound, and I think Lewis is a better outfielder. I'm sure it's close. I know Robbie's actually got that better outs above average, but I would probably say, I'd rather have Lewis in the outfield, have Robbie on the mound. But I think, if this team's core shows up, they got a good chance of winning. I mean, the top six, Lewis, Robbie, Ian, wide, McBoy. If you go probably wide lead off, Lewis batting second, Ian third, McBoy fourth, Robbie fifth, Super Doge sixth. I think they're gonna be really good. Now the problem is, kind of the end of the lineup, 2 free outs. If you can get who would even? I mean, you really don't want Astrojet in your lineup, but they kind of need him. Camstar, he hasn't shown up to a game in a while. It'd be good to get him to show up. But if that's the 8 you got, I think it's winnable. Honestly, pitchers, including myself, do a terrible job pitching matchups, getting to the next guy. So I think Houston probably takes advantage of that. But I mean, if these guys are all batting 500 plus, and then even if you get to 2 free outs, just put the ball in play. Like if Astrojet's up and you're on first with less than 2 outs, you better be at second. But you better be halfway to second when the pitch gets home because he's probably gonna bunt it. If Famous is up, he's got a chance to put the ball in play. He's been around for a while, so I would trust. He's gonna hit that left field line, try to get down. So we'll see. We'll see who elevates in the playoffs, who doesn't. But I think that's kind of the name of the game there. In terms of predictions, it's tough, man. It really could go either way. Obviously, it's a 2 versus 3 matchup. It's 2 teams that are 6-4. Bobbert's at least good for at least 1 win, I think. So if you're Houston, if Bobbert's good for a win, you hope it's game 1. Because if it's game 3, you lose. So, probably Purdue take game 1. I think game 2 is free for Houston, just about. Maybe not free because Andrew's there, but I think this game definitely goes to 3, and then I think we could see some really, really fun matchups of Robbie versus Bobbert. The 2 Robs. We've seen them time and time again, so I'm excited to see that. Tough to tell who's gonna win. Love matchups like this. I think this is probably one of the better playoffs we're gonna see in a while. Especially that 2-3 matchup. I think could go a long way there, and we'll see how that goes. But game one. Expect I think tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern. So make sure you guys tune in if you're playing. Good luck to you. If you're not playing, definitely come check it out. I'm excited for this one. But that's gonna be it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video. I don't know. I may do a series preview tonight. I think I will. I'll probably do a series preview. I know these are kind of a series preview, kind of a quick series preview, and then we'll kind of go over some stuff after the games. All right.